1, 2, test 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1.
Check 1, 2. So, okay, I can control the volume over there.
handout and a card there. Grab a handout and a card there.
Okay, ready? I'll get over here so I'm not. So I guess we're ready to go. Are you giving me the high sign? You're still. Oh, see, these guys do this on purpose back here because they know I can come up here and sort of just get started and ease into it and talk. But when they do this thing, my mind goes blank. So they do that to me all the time. So in other words, I forgot what I was going to say. Hey, y'all, I'm Bill Fowler with Human Resources Department. We have a great turnout for our Lunch and Learn today. I've been finding out from everyone that, well, it is pretty much a goal that everybody wants to retire in some fashion, and there's a lot of discussion on how soon we can do that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Everybody here, please make sure you get a set of slides and also this card on how to get in contact with my FRS. And if you're watching virtually, just send the Learning Connection or Bill Fowler an email, and we'll make sure we get all this information sent to you to your location. So today we have one of our favorite and most consistently good and excellent speakers and presenters, Mr. Dan Grable, who's a consultant with Ernst & Young. He's a certified financial planner. And Ernst & Young has, FRS is contracted with Ernst & Young to be their consultants. When you guys call the FRS, you're getting those qualified Ernst & Young consultants who can set up scenarios for you and answer all these questions about when can I do this, when can I do that. Those are some of the kind of things that Dan's going to cover. The last little thing, again, for you guys virtually, if you have questions for Dan, please just email me, so fowlerb@seminolestate.edu, send an email, and I'll ask that question on your behalf. So Dan, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. It's nice to see you. Obviously, I've met some of you before, but Bill just said I'm Dan Grable. Call me Dan, and I do work for Ernst & Young. Handout-wise, hopefully you do have that big one. And the first part of this has copies of the slides I'm going through. Follow along, make a few notes. Then there's some appendix pages. I'll refer to a few of those as we go through. Then the very last page has all the lines on it. That's your action plan or do list. As we go through this, you're going to think of a lot of things to do or think about or decide on. If you're anything like me, if you don't get it on a list, you won't get it done. Use that as your do list. And I'm not going to make it through all the slides in here. In a perfect world, this is 90 minutes. I've got you for an hour, so I'm going to pick out about the 4 most important issues and cover those today. The cards are pretty cool. One side of the card reminds you of the website address, myfrs.com. And you can look at a lot of info on the website without a PIN number. But to look at your numbers, pension, investment plan, run the program, you need your PIN number. And all of you were sent one. But if you've lost it, don't give it a second thought. Just flip the card over. You see the number for the guidance line. Call that number, hit 1 or 2. They'll throw a new PIN in the mail. You can actually start the login on the website as a new user. It'll determine you don't have one. It'll request it for you. Regardless of how you request it, they're going to mail it to you. Not email it, but mail it to you. That means you might as well go ahead and request the PIN. You already know how this is going to work. You're going to want to look at your numbers one day. It'll take you a week or 10 days to get the PIN, assuming you get it the first time. So go ahead and request the PIN. I'll talk more in a couple of minutes on why else you would call that guidance line number. When you have questions, throw the hands up. Let's address it while we're on the subject. Good chance I don't know all the answers. I'll refer you to the right resource. Folks, a lot of people are currently not safe for retirement. But a lot of people have never run the numbers to figure out, well, what do I need to be doing today so that I don't have to work here until I'm 88 years old? And here's a few specific points about the FRS. Of course, there's no benefit if you leave before you get vested. Vesting means I've been here long enough that when I leave, I take a benefit with me. If you're in the investment plan, it's 1 year vesting. But if you're in the pension plan, it could be 6 or 8 years. Because back on July the 1st of 2011, they kind of created a new class of employee. Those of you with any FRS service prior to July the 1st of 11, I'll call you a previous employee. If I mess up and call you old, I apologize up front. But anybody that came in new after that, I'll call them a new employee. We got new rules for them. And one thing they changed is the vesting under the pension. You previous people, 6-year pension vesting. New people, 8-year pension vesting. And of course, you're always vested in your contributions. All of you are contributing 3% times your monthly gross pay. That's a pre-tax contribution, and you pay that whether you chose pension or investment plan. Although when you go into drop, you don't pay the 3%. So you kind of get a 3% pay raise when you go into drop. And that 3% can change. There's no guarantee it's going to stay at 3%. So just kind of expect somewhere down the road you may hear some conversations about that changing. And if you remember, they started talking at 8%, worked their way down to 5%, settled on 3%. So don't be surprised you hear new conversations about that. And of course, you're always vested in your contributions. If you die before you get vested, leave before you get vested, then the money you've put into the system is going to go to somebody somehow. Then we've had a hard time getting people into the right plan to start with, and they actually changed the default choice. For a long time, when a new person came into the system, they were put in the pension the first day. And they had about 6 months to decide, do I like that one, or would I rather be in the investment plan? But on January the 1st of 18, they made a little change to that. We got 2 major classes in the FRS. Our police and fire and people like that, those are high risk or special risk. And they've got a little different set of rules than pretty much everybody else that's under regular class. But January the 1st of 18, new regular class people start out in the investment plan. And they have about 8 months to decide, do I like the investment plan or would I rather be in the pension? And high-risk people continue to default into the pension plan, and they have that 8 months to decide if they like it or not. But the only way, the FRS has come up with these pretty little bubble charts to try to get people in the right plan to start with. Please don't pay any attention to these. The only way to get in the right plan is to run the numbers. Either go to the website or call the planners and say, if I work here this many years, I get this kind of raise, I'm this kind of investor, what would I have in this one? What would I have in this one? So that's the only way. You can't depend on bubble charts. And if any of you just kind of ended up in a plan and you didn't have time to do your homework back then, you could go to the guidance line of the website now and run the numbers and say, well, if I do work here another 10, 15, 20 years, what do I have in the one I'm in? What would I have in the other one? So you can go run those numbers now. We'll talk a little bit about Social Security in a few minutes. I may not get to a lot of it, but I'll hit a couple of the high spots. Here's some objectives. My objective is a little simpler. I'm just trying to motivate you to take some action to improve your financial situation. We do electronic surveys. At some point, I would appreciate you sending a text to 313131. The send is FRS survey. About 2 seconds after you send that, you'll get a link to a short electronic survey. We would appreciate you doing that. And when you send this text, you're not signing up for 100 texts a day on financial stuff. You'll get nothing else from it. They won't even follow up one single time. If there is such a thing as a safe text to send, this would be the one. Please do that survey for us. Hopefully you got some things on your do list. Get a PIN number, do the survey, maybe run the numbers to make sure that you feel like you're in the right plan. All these resources here are yours, whether you chose the FRS pension plan or the investment plan, does not matter. On the left-hand side is the website. It has everything about the FRS, pension, investment plan, drop, everything. That's where the choice service is, where you can run the numbers comparing the plans. There's an area called second choice election. I'll talk in a few minutes about how you can change your mind between the plans one time. The advisor service here is where I'm pushing you hard to run a retirement plan. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Then the next resource, this is the phone number that shows up on those cards. You dial that number and hit 1 or 2, you go to the EY Financial Planners. They're there for all your financial questions, FRS and otherwise. FRS-wise, things like What plan am I in? What will my benefit be? Look me up. When did I start? When am I eligible for drop? Can I defer drop? Should I defer drop? Should I go into drop at all? I'm coming out of drop. What are my rollover options? But all that FRS stuff plus income tax, estate planning, debt management, it's like having your own CPA and financial planner for free. And they don't sell anything. They don't market anything. Wonderful, free, safe, objective resource provided to you by your FRS. They'll talk as long as you want. It's just a neat resource. There's no catch to this. Take advantage of it. We do other workshops. When you go to the website, you'll see a list of about 8 topics we cover and the schedule around the state. So if we're not going to be here anytime soon for a particular topic, you might find me 5 miles away at a different agency. Catch it there. We do webinars 2 days a quarter. Sign up and view those live. All right, I said I was pushing you hard to run a retirement plan. And you have to make some decisions. Things like, when would you like to retire? How long is retirement going to last? Where are you going to live? What are you going to do? Here's a little illustration of running a retirement plan. But I think a big question is, well, why am I running a retirement plan? Well, most of you realize that no matter how wonderful the FRS and Social Security is, probably not going to fund your retirement. So you know you got to save a little money on your own, maybe in a deferred comp or 403B or something, but until you run the numbers, you don't know how much to save. So at some point in your career, you got to figure out, how much money do I need to be able to retire? So how much am I having to save? So you got to figure that out at some point. Some people wait until they're about to walk out the door and they say, Dan, I'm doing all I can for retirement. Can't do anything else, not going to do anything else. What I need to know is when I walk out the door with my FRS and Social Security and my 457 deferred comp, how much money am I going to have a month to live off of, because I need to start working my budget toward that number. They just want to know what the number is. So wherever you are in that process, then we're pushing you to run that retirement plan, and you can do it yourself or call the guidance line. They'll do it for you. Then the program knows who you are, your age today. You tell it when you would kind of like to retire. Some people put their 30-year point. Some people +5 of drop. A lot of people put 62 because of early Social Security. Right now, more people than ever, I think, are saying they'll work to 65. Because that's when Medicare kicks in. You know, a lot of people just can't afford those retiree medical insurance loan shark type rates. Then the program knows how long from now till then to make suggestions. It'll run your life expectancy to 85, but that may not be long enough. Some of you in here, everybody in your family smokes, drinks, and carouses. They still live to be 102, don't they? Sure they do. And my family's just the opposite. In my family, no males on either side ever made it to 65. That means running my plan to 85 is probably plenty long enough. Not being negative, but probably plenty long enough. But my problem is people in my wife's family never die. I mean, never die, just never die. So you got to plug in something for there. And this is the scary part about retirement planning. How many years is my money going to have to last? If I ask all of you what you're afraid of for retirement, then I'd get a lot of different answers. It all comes to one main issue. You're scared to death of running out of money. So we're pushing you hard to run that retirement plan. When we talk about people dying and stuff, I've got my wife's best friend, her mother, let's see, they had a 100th anniversary birthday celebration planned for this lady's mother, let's see, Sunday week. She died yesterday. Isn't that something? But what the weird thing about that is, you know, I've got this thought in my mind that, dadgum, she didn't make it to her 100. As if there's something magic about, 99 and 11 months and 3 weeks versus making it to that 100 or something. But isn't that kind of weird? Come on, y'all know that's weird. Okay, all right. Okay. All right, here's a little life expectancy chart. Your family history is a lot better indicator. You've got to come up with how much money you're going to spend in retirement. And here at the bottom, we've given you some categories where people spend money. Percentage-wise, how much this person is spending today, how much they think they'll spend in retirement. This person says, I think I can make do off 80% of that full or of that pre-retirement income. And a lot of planners will just throw that 80% at you. I'd rather you take a look at your spending and think about how it's going to change. But my easy suggestion is when you run that retirement plan the first time, I'd just plug in your income today. And then the program will inflate it for the rest of your life and look at everything you're doing, look at the FRS, Social Security, and your deferred comp, and say, is that going to be enough? I run into people all the time that are about to walk out the door retired. And I have 2 or 3 things I'm curious about, but one question I'll ask a lot is, how do you feel? And I mean, these people are about to walk out the door. I mean, they can see their last day, and most of them have almost got the shakes. It looks like they're scared to death. And I had a hard time figuring that out. Retirement, golden years, sleep late tomorrow, don't have to deal with the idiots in my office anymore. But these people are scared, and I finally figured out retirement is change. And we typically just don't like a lot of change. But if you do your retirement planning so that you know you're making this much the last month you work from your employer, and then the first month in retirement, if you know you're going to have the same income, now it's just from FRS, Social Security, and your deferred comp. If you're going to have the same income, that's got to reduce your stress level, right? I mean, if you're okay with this amount of money this month, then chances are you're going to be close the next month. So my suggestion is when you run that retirement plan, plug in your income today. Let it look at everything and see if you can just replace that income when you walk out the door. Then inflation means everything you buy goes up in price pretty much every year. Planners will use 3.5. If you want more or less use, let them know. All right. We know when we'd kind of like to retire, how much money I'd like to have. Then now we've got to figure out where the money's coming from. 3 main sources, FRS, Social Security, and outside savings. In the FRS, all of you have chosen either the FRS pension plan or the investment plan. Do not confuse these with your 403B or your 457 deferred comp. Those are great plans, not part of the FRS. All of you are in one of these, and then hopefully also saving some money in that other thing. Then let's hit the high spots of the pension. Oh, and if you're not sure which one you're in, well, don't be embarrassed about that. That just means that's your first call for the guidance line. Which plan am I in? What will my benefit be? Now, here's the pension plan. Pensions are generally designed for long service employees. Benefit grows in kind of a snowball type effect, vesting 6 or 8 years according to when you join the system. The benefit at retirement's based on a formula. I'll show you a formula in a moment that calculates a monthly check, and you get that guaranteed monthly check for the rest of your life. That's the hook about the pension plan. Guaranteed check for the rest of your life, survivor options available. You cannot outlive the benefit. That's the hook about the pension plan. Funded by employee and employer contributions. You're putting in the 3%. Your employer's throwing in money. The benefits are not impacted by investments. You have performance. You have nothing to do with choosing investments in the pension plan. If you're in the pension, they have about $160 billion set aside to pay your benefits. And the investment ups and downs in that trust fund don't drive your benefit. If that trust fund makes money today, that's wonderful, but it's the formula that defines your monthly check. Gains or losses in that trust fund. And this thing's portable within the system. Around the state of Florida, there's more than 1,000 agencies use the FRS, and that list is on the website. If you decided to move to a different part of Florida, you could look and see, well, what agencies there use the FRS? I'll go to work for one of them, just keep growing my benefit. And it's real common to run into someone maybe retiring with 30 years. They might have 10 years here. They might have 10 years with Volusia County, maybe 10 years with a state agency. It just all adds up to 30 FRS years. And real important, if you're in the pension, you're eligible for drop. And I'll explain that in a minute. But if you're in the investment plan, there is no drop. Here's the formula. We've got Kathy. She's been with us for 10 years. We're multiplying her 10 years times a factor of 1.60. That's a factor for a regular class employee that does 30 years or less. I don't have any high risk in here today, do I? High risk, high risk, high risk. Okay, their factor's 3.0. Then we multiply that times your AFC, average final compensation. You previous people, it's your high 5-year average. New people, high 8-year average. And for most of you, it'll be your final 5 or 8, but it doesn't have to be. You could get your pay up to a certain level, take a downgrade for some reason. You've already pegged that high 5 or high 8-year average. Doesn't even have to be continuous years. It could turn out to be year 20, 22, 24, 26, whatever. Then we multiply all that out. It gives us your first year option 1 benefit at normal retirement. When I mention option 1, when you come in to sign retirement papers, and if you're going into drop, that's at the beginning of drop. If you're not doing drop, it's the papers you'll sign pretty much on your way out the door. You have to choose from 4 payment options, and those options tell you how big your check will be, and will anybody else get a check when you die? Real important choice. You only get 1 shot at this. And if you make the wrong decision, you're stuck with it forever. But the formula here is calculating option 1. That's a single life annuity. And 2, 3, and 4 are calculated off of number 1. But if you retired and chose 1, you would get the biggest check for the rest of your life. But when you die, the check stops. Nobody else gets any money. With option 1, you live to 105, you win. That's a great choice. But if you retired at 62, died 64, only got 2 years of money, option 1 wouldn't have been your hottest choice. But this benefit here, $600, that's a year. We divide that by 12 for a monthly check. What's that, a little less than $500 a month? Not much of a pension, is it? Well, she hadn't had much of a career, only been here 10 years, and it could be she just hit 62, might say, I quit, I'm going to the house, send me my checks. Not very big, but I only worked there 10 years. It was the 2nd or 3rd career for me. Happy to have the money. Or it could be that she's only 30 years old, still sitting here on the payroll and says, I'm going to work another 20 or 25 and make that a whole lot bigger. Could be either one of those. All right, I got to define normal retirement for you, but let me jump down here to the cost of living adjustment. They changed this back on July the 1st of 2011. And the short explanation of this is that whatever service you had prior to July the 1st of 11, then that part of your check will go up 3% every year in July. But whatever service you had after July the 1st of 11, then you will not get an automatic increase on that. And if we end up with some extra time at the end, I'll come back and maybe talk about that a little more if you're a little confused about that. Anybody confused about that still? I mean, it's okay. Anybody still confused? Let me go ahead and cover that. That's important. All right, I said any service prior to July the 1st of 11, you'll get a 3% increase. Okay, service after July the 1st of 11, no automatic increases. That means that someone had 29 years in 2011, only work 1 more year under the new rule. They say, oh, I can live with that. I'll get 3% on 29 years worth of my money. That's okay. But if somebody only had 2 years in 11, and they work another 29 or 30 under the new rule, they're certainly not going to get much of an increase. And of course, my brand new people after July 1 of 11, no automatic increases at all. That makes sense so far? Well, the way you'll see it calculated looks a little different. They average it out. If someone had 20 years in 2011, they'll get 3% on those years. If they work 10 more years under the new rule with no automatics, then 20 out of 30 is 2/3, right? 2/3 of 3% is 2%. The person would get a 2% increase on the whole check. They average it out. The next confusing thing, I'll have guys come to me a couple of times a year, and it's always a guy, and he'll say, Dan, I guess I need to go ahead and retire. I'm losing money every year. And I have to think, now where's this coming from? It's always this cost of living confusion. But if we pretend that today is 2011, If I had 20 years of service, if I asked the FRS my benefit, they would tell me an amount. They'll say it'll go up 3% a year. But if today was 2011 and I said, no, I don't think I'll quit today, what if I work one more year? Well, that's 20 years at 3%, 1 year at nothing. It's about 2.9% average increase. Or what if I work 2 more years? Well, that's 20 at 3, 2 at nothing. It's about 2.8. That means the longer you work, that percentage goes down. But it isn't costing you money. You're still getting the 3% dollars on the pre-11 years. They're just averaging it out over a bigger check. But if you're still a little confused about that, it's okay. It's confusing. Call the guidance line and say, I believe every word Dan said, but show me on my numbers here. It's just confusing. When they first changed this and sent me the info and said, talk about it, I said, I can't talk about this. I don't understand this. I had to call the guidance line twice to get it straight in my mind. So feel free to give them a buzz on that. All right, I've got to define normal retirement. When are you eligible for normal retirement? And as I define this, it's real important because it's also your drop eligibility. You're eligible to go into drop when you reach normal retirement. So it's important you understand when you're eligible for normal retirement. Then when I get to drop in about 2 minutes, then we'll be way ahead of the game. But you previous regular class people, that's people with any service prior to July the 1st of 11, you're eligible for normal retirement at the earliest of 30 years of service or age 62. Earliest of 30 or 62. My new regular class, it's the earliest of 33 years of service or age 65. Earliest of 33 or 65. And I'm not doing the high risk numbers. We said we don't have any high risk, right? Right. Okay. All right. Now, as I said all that, I know every one of you heard me say or. Somebody always misses earliest, and earliest is more important than or. For example, you previous regular class people, you start here when you're 20, you get your 30 in at age 50, you're eligible for normal retirement because you have the 30 years. They don't kick you out, you'd stay forever, but you're eligible because you have the 30 years. But what if you just start here to your 50? You get to age 62, you only have 12 years of service, but you're eligible for normal retirement because you're age 62. It'll only be 12 years in the benefit formula, but you're eligible because you're 62. So you got to remember, it's not or, it's the earliest stuff. And you won't hear your buddies say this. When you hear your friends talking about this, you'll hear 30 or 62, 33 or 65. You got to start correcting them. Be nice, be gentle, but you got to correct them. It's not 30 or 62. It's the earliest of 30 or 62 or 33 or 65. And if I'm just talking about retirement, I just spent way too much time on this. But when we get to drop, it's a deal breaker because you can miss your window of opportunity for drop. Okay, we're out on the formula for now. All right, well, I'm headed toward drop. Then let me give you the easiest explanation you've ever heard for drop. Before there was a drop, the FRS had people that would get to that normal retirement age. They would retire, start getting their pension checks, and the very next day go to work somewhere else. These people weren't really ready for what I call retirement. All they did was retire from here so they could start getting a pension check in addition to a work check. They wanted 2 checks, makes perfect sense. But the FRS said if these people are going to work anyway, let's design a program that will keep them working here. And that's what drop does. When you reach that normal retirement, whatever it is for you, earliest of 30 or 62, earliest 33, 65, you actually come in and retire. You sign all the papers, you make all the decisions, you retire. Then you sign your drop papers. And when you finish all that paperwork, you go right back to your same job, same seniority, same pay, same employee medical insurance, and you keep working for up to another 5 years. But since we signed those retirement papers, you would think pension checks start, right? And they do start, but they don't come to your mailbox. Those pension checks start going every month untaxed into this drop account set up in the sky for you. That means you're working your regular job, you're being paid like always, but every month your pension check goes into that drop account. And that check goes up whatever your cost of living increase is every year, and you earn a little interest on the money. But let's say you work the full 5 years and drop. And 5 years is the max drop time for almost everybody. And when you enter drop, you have to declare the number of years you'll be in drop. But don't stress about that. Everyone declares 5. If you declare 5, decide to leave early, no problem. But if you declare 2, change your mind, want to stay for 5, that's a big problem. Everybody declares 5. But let's say you work the full 5 years and drop. You've gotten paid for every day you have worked. But when you finish that 5 years, you have to go. You go to private industry tomorrow, but you have to get away from an FRS agency. And then those pension checks that have been going up there, well, once you finish drop and you're at home on the couch, then you start getting the pension check every month. It's real common for someone to say, oh, at the end of drop, well, that's when I get our pension check. No, it isn't. You've already gotten 5 years of pension checks. They're sitting in the drop account. When you finish drop and you're on the couch, you're starting on year 6 at that point. That makes sense? Okay, so you're getting the pension checks, whatever choice you made. And then what about that money I've built up in that drop account? I got 5 years of pension checks, cost of living, interest on the money, maybe $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. That's your money. You can do pretty much whatever you like with that. If you wanted to, you could call and say, well, just send it all to me at once. For some reason, I love paying taxes and I just want to get hammered. Not many people do that. Most people will say, well, send me a little bit of that money, pay off a little debt, maybe send me a little more to put down on something new. But the majority of that money, I do not want to spend it today. I do not want to pay the taxes today. And they will roll that money over. When you hear that term roll over, that means I've got some untaxed money sitting somewhere. And your drop money is untaxed. And I want to transfer that somewhere, but keep it untaxed. That's called a rollover. So I'm going to roll my drop money over either into my 457 deferred comp, a 403B, an IRA, or I can actually roll it into the FRS investment plan. And I know that sounds weird because you already know you can't be in both plans. You can't change while you're in drop, but the FRS and the IRS will let you use the investment plan for your drop rollover. You're not changing plans. You're still in the pension. You're getting those pension checks forever, but you've used the investment plan for your rollover. And a lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are doing it just purely saying, well, I've been happy with the FRS for 30 or 40 years. Must be a good idea. Sure, I'll do that. But a lot of people are doing it because of low internal management charges. Every mutual fund in the world, whether it's in the investment plan, your deferred comp, has those little hidden charges, money coming out of your money. The hidden charges in those FRS select funds in the investment plan are lower than you'll find in your deferred comp, 403B, or an IRA. So a lot of people roll to the investment plan because of the low charges. As we talk about this, I'm not trying to sell you on doing that, but when you get to that point, it's an option worth considering. And you can split monies up too. People constantly ask, well, can I put half my drop money in the investment plan and put half of it in my 403B or deferred comp? And absolutely, you can split that up. And get some tax advice when you're coming out of drop. Then a lot of people, their first thought about drop money is, well, I'll just take all my drop money and I'll pay off all my debts. I'll go into retirement debt-free. Well, I love the idea of retirement debt-free. But if you're coming out of drop, particularly, say now, toward the end of the year, there's a decent chance you just had the biggest earnings year you've ever had. And then if you throw another 100, 150 grand of drop money off on top of that, you could kick yourself up multiple tax brackets. So it's important to get some tax guidance, because when I talk about kicking you up tax brackets, then that sounds bad, right? But a real common bracket for a married couple is a 12% bracket. But if you take a chunk of drop money, you can kick yourself up 2 tax brackets, which is the 22 and 24%. So it's one thing to say increase your tax brackets, but it's another one to say you can double your tax rate. So please get some tax guidance from the guidance line or your tax preparer, whoever, before you take money out of drop. The weirdest thing about drop is when you, let's see, you may know somebody that's in drop now, and you may see them working away one day, and you may look at them and say, gosh, you certainly are working hard. When are you going to retire? They may look up at you and say, gosh, I retired 5 years ago or 3 years ago. And what are you talking about? Well, you're totally confused, right? Then they're working, you assume they're being paid, but they retired 3 years ago. How does that make any sense at all? But that's drop for you. You actually retire at the beginning of drop. Your pension checks start, they just go up into that drop account for the first 5 years. That means if you do 33, or if you do 30 years of service, no, if you do 30 plus 5 years of drop, that formula is not 35 times 168. No, it's 30 times 160. Then your pension gets pegged at the beginning of drop. They just go up into that drop account. That means if you get a nice promotion and a nice raise while you're in drop, you get that in your paycheck, but it will have no effect on your pension because you have already retired and pegged that pension. I mentioned earlier that when you finish drop, I said you go to private industry tomorrow, but you have to get away from an FRS agency. And you have to stay away from an FRS agency for 6 months. But there's still a big 6-month financial penalty. Let me say it another way. To come back with an FRS agency without a penalty, you have to stay gone for a year. And you will not earn another FRS retirement. And be careful if you think you're coming back as a contractor or something. People all the time say, well, I'm coming back as a special secret 007 class something or other. The FRS has tried to close all those loopholes. So be sure you get on the phone with them to start with and say, is this an exempted position? And good chance it probably will not be. All right, I need to get to eligibility for drop. Okay, go ahead.
One quick question. When you go into drop, for those number of years you said the 3% that normally comes out of your pay to contribute toward your pension, that stops. And the college doesn't continue to contribute anything during the time you're in drop toward your pension, correct?
Let's see, earlier I think I said when you go into drop, you don't pay the 3%, so you kind of get a 3% pay raise. I don't know for sure that the college doesn't contribute. I kind of think the college keeps contributing some amount for you, but it's not any money coming out of your check. Okay. All right, anything else? All right, we kind of got a decent understanding. All right, I got to get to the eligibility for it, but kind of understand how drop works. So who does drop fit? If you got a lot of years of service, 25 or 30 years, those people generally love drop. If you've only got 6 or 8 years, you only have to be vested to go into drop, but rarely does somebody with just a few years go into drop, because when they run the numbers, they generally realize it makes more sense just to work more years, make their formula and their check bigger rather than go into drop. All right, we to eligibility, we good, we good? All right, when are you eligible to go into drop? I said you're eligible when you reach normal retirement. So that's either the earliest of 30 or 62, earliest of 33 or 65. But if you get your years in early, you may be able to delay going into drop. Let me back up one step. You're eligible to go into drop when you reach that normal retirement, whatever it is for you. And if you go in right then, you can do 5 years of drop. But if you want to, you could dawdle a little bit. You could wait up to a year to go into drop, but you're burning drop time. So if you wait a year to go into drop, you can only do 4 years of drop. You wait one more day, you have missed drop totally. It is possible to miss your window of drop. But if you get your years in early, you may be able to delay drop more. For example, a previous regular class person starts here at 20, they get their 30 in at age 50. Well, they're retirement eligible. They could go into drop at age 50. But a lot of those people say, no, too young, too early. Can't I wait a while? Well, a previous regular class person can delay drop to 57. That means if I get my 30 in at 50, then every year I just think about it. Do I do it? 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 But once I hit the first day of my birthday month, 57, if I want to do 5 years, I've got to be in that day. Wait a year, do 4. Wait another day, I have missed it totally. So it is possible to miss that window. Now that 57 only matters if you get your years in early. If you get your 30 in at age 58, then 57 didn't mean anything to you because you weren't eligible at the time. And we must have had tons of people start with the FRS when they were 28. I seem to run into all of them when they get close to their 30, and I will say, are you going in to drop? And so many times they'll say, no, I don't think I'll do it at my 30. I think I'll wait and do it at 62. Well, what they've heard was 30 or 62. They missed earliest of 30 or 62, because if that person gets a 30 at 58, they go in right then, do 5 years. Wait a year, do 4. Wait another day, they've missed it totally. So if they wait for 62, they've missed their window. And it works the same, just the opposite. If I hit 62 with 25 years, I'll run into someone like that and I'll say, were you going into drop? And so many times they'll say, no, I don't think I'll do it at 62. I think I'll wait and do it at 30. Well, again, they heard 30 or 62. But if they get 25 at 62, they go in right then, do 5. Wait a year, do 4. Wait another day, they've missed it. So you got to remember, it's not or, it's the earliest stuff. And I run into probably 25 people a year that have missed their window of opportunity for drop. They've just missed it. And it's all this same reason. They heard or instead of earliest stuff. And if it wasn't pitiful, it would be funny, because I learn about it the same way. It'll be after a workshop, and it'll typically be a guy, but a guy will come and he'll say, Dan, I must have misunderstood you, and I know what's coming. And I'll say, okay, tell me. And they'll tell me, and then they'll say, okay, I think you said I've missed drop. And I said, you have missed drop. You need to go to HR right now. You need to call the guidance line. But yes, it looks to me like you have missed it. And then they'll say, well, it's or. No, it's not. It's the earliest of those. So don't make that mistake. And nobody's your mama on this. I mean, the FRS is not going to bug you and say you're eligible. Your HR people aren't going to do this. This is your responsibility. My suggestion is about 5 years from when you think you might possibly be eligible, be calling the guidance line once a year at least and update your numbers, make sure you're on track, and then say, when am I eligible? Let's talk about drop, anything going on with it. But don't miss that window. And they can run numbers both ways. You can say, well, I'm not sure if I want to go into drop. Maybe I've only got 20 years of service or something, or I might get a raise next year. Well, they can say, well, if you go into drop, this is what you have. If you don't go into drop, this is what you have. Which one works the best for you? But don't miss that window of opportunity there. Okay. Get some tax advice coming out. What else? We okay with that? Does that make sense? We all right there? Any other things about drop? Oh, is drop going away? There is no legislated end for drop. So as far as we know, drop's going to be around forever. Not likely, but there's nothing right now. Nobody's having conversations. If you remember a few years ago, you couldn't pick up the newspaper without there being a negative article about drop. Well, there were two things that the public were complaining about. One were all those people that finished drop and they walked right back in to the FRS agency and earned another brand new retirement. Well, they shut all that down. The other thing everybody complained about is you used to earn 6.5% interest on drop money. Now it's 1.3. I mean, at 6.5%, the public's earning 1/4% guaranteed money, and you were earning 6.5%. But once they've made those two changes, you've not seen a peep in the media about drop. So I think if you can keep it out of the media, then you got a chance of it staying around for a while. Yes, ma'am.
When you go into drop, you have to choose one of those 4 plans. And it's my understanding that if you were to die while in drop, it doesn't change the plan. In other
Okay.
words, if you choose option 1, then, and with no spousal or no survivor benefit, then it ends. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. The question is, if you go into drop and you choose option number 1, let's say you die halfway through drop. Well, you've assigned a beneficiary to your drop account, so that money's going to go to whoever you like. And then whatever option you chose will dictate what's happened to your pension check. If you're a single person, you chose option number 1, you die halfway through drop, then your pension check stopped. But if it was me and I had chosen option 3 to provide a benefit for my wife, I die at the 2-year point. My wife gets the money in the drop account, and then she continues to get a check because I chose an option for her. That makes sense? Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's talk about the investment plan for a minute. I really got 2 things I want to talk about: the investment plan and the opportunity to change, and that'll get us right about to the end. But the investment plan, more recent retirement plan design, not a 401k, but in that same family of accounts. And vesting is 1 year, whether you're new or previous. The benefits based on employee and employer contributions and investment returns. And in the investment plan, there's no formula defining a monthly check. The investment plan, we're just growing a big lump sum of money. And when you retire, you might have $100,000, $300,000, $500,000. That's your money. You do whatever you like. Invest it wisely, spend it wisely, waste it. It is your money. You have total flexibility. You have total responsibility with the investment plan. And then also, let's see, this thing's portable, not just inside those 1,000 agencies, but you go to work for private industry, they got a 401k, you can roll it over there, roll it to an IRA, do whatever you want with that money. And when you retire under the investment plan, you can actually, a lot of people just leave the money in the investment plan and say, send me $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, send me 10 grand a day, but they just keep using those investments and just live out of the investment plan. Or you can roll it out to some other place. You can even buy an annuity from MetLife inside the investment plan. And then, of course, if you're in the investment plan, there is no drop. Then this guy's been around for a little while. He's built up a balance of $30,000 in the investment plan. Then every month new money flows in, $270 for him. That's a percentage based on his monthly gross pay. As a regular class person, then 6.3% of your monthly gross pay is what goes into the investment plan. And that's 3 from you and the rest from your employer. So for him, $270, looks like he made $190 on his investments that month. The next month, same thing happens. He gets another $270. Looks like he lost $60 on his investments that month. If he leaves today, he's totally vested. That's his money. He can leave it in the investment plan and say, send me so much a month. He can roll it out to his deferred comp, roll it to a new 401k, make good decisions, bad decisions. It's his money. Do whatever he likes with that. Then hopefully you know which plan you are in. I hope it's perfect for you forever, but always remember you can change your mind one time. That's called your second choice selection. If you're in the pension, you can move to the investment plan. If you're in the investment plan, you can move to the pension. When can you actually make this change? Pretty much whenever you like, as long as you're still actively employed, on the payroll, receiving service credit. Can't be on a leave of absence and change. Can't be in drop and change. Can't be retired and change. And if you're in the pension, thinking about moving to the investment plan, that's a very easy change. All they do is run the pension formula you've earned, do a present value type number to determine a lump sum amount of money to throw into your investment plan, real easy change. But if you're sitting in the investment plan today and you're thinking of moving to the pension, you have to buy back the pension. And there's a real good chance that you do not have enough money in the investment plan to be able to buy back into the pension. So where I'm headed with this, if you're going pension to investment plan, you can do it pretty much whenever you like. But if you're sitting in the investment plan today and you have a thought of moving to the pension, you really need to call the guidance line and have them run the numbers to make sure it's not already too late. But why in the world do people change plans? If you're in the pension today, chances are it's because you intend to work here a long time, like the idea of the guaranteed check, drop fits you, you love the idea of drop, the pension just fits you perfectly. But if you get that job opportunity with an outside employer you can't turn down, they've got a 401k, right before you leave you might move to the investment plan. Take your money with you to that new 401k. Some people say, Dan, I wish there was a lump sum pension payment option. We don't have lump sum pension options. You have those 4 monthly check options. But some people are thinking about work that full career under the pension, grow that thing as big as they can, and right before they leave, move to the investment plan. That gives them the lump sum, spend as they please, invest as they please. And if you're in the investment plan today, chances are it's because you don't really think you're going to work here forever. But at some point you might change your mind. I love it here. I'm staying forever. Drop sounds pretty cool. I'd rather get a guaranteed monthly check. Then you might want to consider trying to buy back into the pension. This is a screenshot of an area on the website called Second Choice Election, and it does two things for you. One, it'll just give you an estimate of the numbers, that if you were thinking about changing, what would the money look like? And don't be afraid of going out there. You cannot make a change by accident. So a lot of people just wander around out there just purely out of curiosity, and that site will also compare the cash flow between the two plans for the rest of your life, and that's a tough part of the deal. That if you ever consider making a change, you could print out the form and do it yourself. I beg you not to do that. Please call the guidance line. Say, I'm thinking about this. This is my reasoning. What am I missing? Would it be good? Would it be bad? Run the numbers for me. Should I do it? Should I not? But get some help from those guidance line planners. And those planners are totally objective. I mean, Ernst & Young works for both ends of the FRS, the pension people and the investment plan people. So when you're talking to our folks, they're not trying to get you in this plan or out of this one. They are totally objective. Be careful, too, about the vesting rules. If you're past your 6 or 8 years of vesting service and you make a change, no matter which way you change, you're totally vested, you're cool. But if you make a change with less than that 6 or 8 years, vesting rules are real weird, strange, confusing. Don't do it without calling the guidance line. You could make a bad mistake. So be careful. But think of this as your emergency change. Hopefully you'll never need it, but if you wake up one day, your life's totally turned upside down, then you've got that one opportunity if you do need it. A couple of things about Social Security. This gives you an idea when you're eligible. If you're born 43 to 54, full Social Security at 66, born 1960 and later 67 for full Social Security. If you're in the gaps right here, you might get your full benefits at 66 plus 4 months or 6 months or 8. Don't need to be any more nervous than all the rest of us are. You can start as early as 62. If you're in this category, you get about 75% of the full benefit, about 70% if you're in the 67 category, and you don't have to start until 70. And between your full retirement and 70, then that check goes up about 8% a year, which is a big deal. But you need to make sure you're going to live long enough to have that make sense. I told you earlier, nobody in my family's ever made it to 65. I hadn't made a decision on this, but it's pretty darn unlikely I'm waiting till 70. I mean, I just can't see that being a worthwhile strategy for my family history. Now, another deal, I mentioned Medicare at 65. A lot of people say, no, Dan, Medicare for me is 66. Well, they're confusing Medicare with full Social Security. Most of you have 3 ages you care about. There'll be the age when you're eligible for full or normal retirement under the FRS, and then 65 for Medicare, and then if you're like me, I'm in this 66 category here. Some of you may be in the 67 category. And if you are leaving before age 65, before Medicare, be sure and talk with HR about how much your retiree medical insurance is going to be, because it's probably going to be a choker. Most places I go, it's $1,400, $1,500 a month for a couple, $700 or $800 a month for an individual. So that's a big deal coming out of a pension check. And that's the reason why tons of folks are figuring, well, I guess I got to work till 65, because that's when Medicare kicks in. There's something called the health insurance subsidy that the FRS has to help you with retiree medical insurance. And they give you $5 a month time, and this is not in your handout. They give you $5 a month times your years of service to a maximum 30 years toward retiree medical. So 30 years times 5, $150 a month toward retiree medical. And you don't have to keep the retiree medical here. You can have it with a spouse. You can have TRICARE, Affordable Care Act. You can use it for Medicare dollars. You just have to prove you're paying for some kind of coverage. And if you're in the pension, it's added to your pension check. It's not taxable, but it's added to your pension check. If you're in the investment plan, it's some kind of separate automatic deposit. One of the things to remember about the subsidy, it isn't guaranteed to you. The benefits you've earned under the FRS are guaranteed by the trust fund in the state of Florida, but that health insurance subsidy is under current law. That means you could start getting it and your elected officials could cut it out 2 months later. Now, I don't know that they're going to do anything with it. Several sessions back, there was a bill came up to do away with it. It didn't pass. It's been fairly quiet ever since. But just remember, that thing's not guaranteed, and your drop years don't count for the subsidy. So if you do 25 years, if you're eligible to go drop at 25, so you do 25 years plus 5, well, the subsidy's not 30 years times $5, it's 25 times $5. But also, you don't pay the 3% while you're in drop. And even though I said you retire at the beginning of drop, it's only this little bitty FRS piece that you stay on the employee medical insurance until you actually finish drop. So you don't get hit with those loan shark type rates until you actually finish drop. So a lot of people that can do drop at 62, then they may sign up and say, well, I'm going to do 5, but in the back of a lot of those people's minds is, hey, I got to do 3 to get me to 65, and then I got a little flexibility after that, how much extra time I take. I've got about 1 more minute, and I think I've covered the kind of important points, but don't forget about that financial guidance line. Then that thing, when you call that phone number listed on the cards, hit option 1 or 2, that takes you to the Ernst & Young financial planners. They'll talk as long as you like, any financial subject, and don't be embarrassed to call them. I ran into some people the other day that said, hey, Dan, I desperately need to call the guidance line, but I'm embarrassed because I don't even really know what to ask. And I said, well, call them and tell them that. Just say, I've never really been exposed to all this stuff. Well, you get me started in the right direction, and they'll start asking you questions. So take advantage of that planner line. All right, I've enjoyed being with you. I'll stick around, or I'll be around a few more minutes for other questions. I'm throwing it over to Bill.
Yeah, we're going to wrap up on time, and we did get a few emails from other campuses basically wanting the materials, so we'll get that out to you guys in the other campuses. And I know all of you, I'm not going to ask Dan how old he is, but I know we're all rooting that he gets past 65, so we hope that happens. So we appreciate it again, Dan. Thanks for everybody for coming.
Okay, thank you. I'll see you.